Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin ve salatu ve selamu ala eşrefi halk seyyidül enam Muhammedur Resulullah sallallahu teala aleyhi ve sellem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrahli sadri ve yesirli emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yafkahu kavli ve ufevvidu emri ilallah innallaha basirun bin ibad. Selamu alaikum everyone here and online. Inshallah, we are continuing with the words. Today I'm going to do the ninth word. I think you might find that interesting. In the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate, so glorify God when you reach evening and when you rise in the morning, for all praise is His in the heavens and on earth, and towards the end of the day when you have reached noon. So there are a few times of the praise mentioned in this verse here in the Quran. Brother, you ask me concerning the wisdom in the specified times of the daily 5 prayers. I shall point out only one of the many instances of wisdom in these times. Yes, like each of the times of the prayer marks the start of an important revolution, so also in each a mirror to divine disposal of power and to the universal divine bounties within that disposal. So the question they asked Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, what is the wisdom in the prayer times, the daily 5 prayers? You know how we pray at certain times? And they ask, what is the wisdom behind it? You know, why specific times? Why can't we just pray at any time we want? But there are specific times, 5 times a day. So he's going to explain the reason for it. So basically, he says they mark each time of the prayer, mark an important revolution. Also, they are like a mirror to divine disposal of power. So Allah does an act on earth, on the stones, and to the universal divine bounties within that disposal. Thus, more glorification and exalting of the all-powerful one of glory have been ordered at those times, and more praise and thanks for all the innumerable bounties accumulated between each of these times, which is the meaning of the prescribed prayers, the daily 5 prayers. In order to understand a little subtle and profound meaning, you should listen together with my own soul, as he always says, to the following 5 points. So he's going to explain it. What is the hikmah, wisdom of the daily 5 prayers? The first point, the meaning of the prayers is the offering of glorification, praise, and thanks to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what the prayers are. So you are, or we are glorifying Allah. We are praising Him, and we are, presenting our thanks to Him. That is to say, uttering glory be to God by word and action before God's glory and sublimity. It is to hallow and worship Him and declaring God is most great, Allahu Akbar, through word and act before His sheer perfection. Since everything else is imperfect, nothing is perfect, He is the only perfect being, so we glorify Him and we show our humility and modesty before His majesty. That's what the prayers are. Of course, I mentioned this a number of times before. When we pray, we are bowing and going into the prostration position before Allah, the Almighty, the owner of the universe. But we are also making a statement. We are saying that this head does not go down before anyone else, not or anything else. Not money, not fame, not wealth, not other human beings, not presidents, no one. We don't bow before no one. That's what we are saying there. It is also why these blessed words are each repeated 33 times during the prayers in order to strengthen and reiterate the prayers' meaning. The meaning of the prayers is confirmed through these concise summaries. And we repeat certain words, as you know. During the prayer, we say, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala. And of course, at the end, 33 times, we say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. They are all confirmation. The second point is the meaning of worship is this, that the servant sees his own faults, impotence, and poverty, and in the divine court prostrates in love and wonderment before dominical perfection, divine mercy, and the power of the eternally besought one. That is to say, just as sovereignty and dominicality demands worship and obedience, so also does the holiness of dominicality require that the servant sees his own faults through seeking forgiveness and through his glorification and declaring, glory be to Allah. Proclaims that his sustainer is pure and free of all defects. Because in Islam, the understanding of God is quite different to all the rest of the religions. It's quite different. We don't give shape to God. We don't give material body to God. We don't assign a direction to God. We don't assign a mekan, space-time to God. We say God is, not bound by space or time. That is why sometimes when people ask questions like, where was God before he created the universe? So he wasn't somewhere because he doesn't need a where. He doesn't need a mekan. He doesn't need space. He doesn't need time either because they ask that too. If God is infinite, eternal in the past and in the future, then why didn't he create the universe before but after? See, the concepts of before and after doesn't apply to God. They apply to us because they are time. God created time. And even today, we know through physics that the universe had a beginning point. And many people make a mistake when they think about the beginning of the universe, the famous Big Bang. They think that the Big Bang occurred in an empty space. There was this, infinite empty space, a void, And within that empty space, there was a point where the Big Bang happened. This is not how it happened. So the Big Bang did not happen in a point in space. It happened in a point in time. Because space did not exist. There was no space. It was all created. Since, we know through physics now, space and time cannot be separated anyway. That's why we don't say space and time, we say space-time. They are one entity because one cannot exist without the other one. Allah has created the universe at the Big Bang with space and time together. So time began to tick after he created it. So before, there was no such a thing as time anyway. So time is not something that, controls Allah. Subhanahu. God is not bound, limited by time. So all of these concepts is only applicable to us, not to God. So that's a very different understanding of God in Islam. That is why there are certain principles. And there are also in Islamic theology, in Aqidah, Creed, we have the attributes of God. And attributes define God. And they come from himself, from the Quran anyway. But attributes define God. We have two sets of attributes. 6 of them we call transcendent attributes. And there are 8 of them we call affirmative attributes. Or in Arabic, we call selbi sifats and subuti sifats. The 6 attributes which are transcendent, meaning that no other being would have those attributes. That's what it means, because they are transcendent. So no other being can have them. But the 8 subuti sifats, affirmative attributes, Allah has given them to humans as well in a finite measure. like seeing, hearing, knowledge, power. Humans have those things. So hayat, life, these are his attributes. He has given them to us too in a very finite measure, so we can make a comparison. We can understand. But as I said, with the other attributes, let me just mute this because it's coming. With the other attributes, transcendent attributes, you can never assign them to anything or anyone. Nothing in existence can have them, because they are like, wahdaniya, oneness. No other being is one. There's always, they have their counterparts or opposites, because we define everything with their opposites. If there were no opposite, we could not define anything. How do we know, for example, what is long? Because we know what is short. Yeah. How do we know what is cold? Because there's hot. How do we know what is night? Because there's day, light. Everything has an opposite or something similar to it, so we can define things. Otherwise, we can never define them. But this is not applicable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is unlike anything. So that's his wahdaniyya. He has wujud. Wujud means necessarily existence. It means that he has to exist. Anything else doesn't need to exist because we're all possibilities. We're all probabilities. That's what we are. It's called imkan. We can exist or not exist. And nothing will change. If I didn't exist, nothing was going to change. My existence is not a necessity, but his existence is a necessity. Because if he didn't exist, nothing else would exist. Everything depends on him. So the definition of Allah, God in Islam, is very different. And if in Islam anybody disbelieves any of these definitions of Allah, then they assign a physical body or something like that to Allah, it's considered as disbelief. That is why those attributes are there. You cannot say Allah is powerless, for example. You cannot say Allah is not infinite, for example. And this is kufr. This is considered as kufr. That's why they are very well established, his attributes. So all the perfect power of dominicality requires that through understanding his own weakness, human beings, and the impotence of other creatures, the servant, us, we are the servants, kul, kul, we are abd. We proclaim God is most great in admiration and wonder before the majesty of works of the eternally beside one's power. And because of his majesty, his greatness, we bow in deep humility and we seek refuge in him and places his trust in him. So we seek refuge in Allah. Why? Because you can seek refuge in anything else, you're not going to get refuge. It's a reality. No one else can help you with that. People become cancer. They're in the hospitals, or the greatest scientists are there, but they can't save them. No matter where you seek refuge, it's at the end of the day, they're not going to save you. They are temporal like yourself. They are temporary beings like yourself. So only if you seek refuge in Allah, who is eternal, everlasting, he has the attribute of baka as well, then you will attain that eternity as well. Then you will receive your power from him. Then you won't be impotent anymore. So this is what prayer is anyway. That's what you're doing there. The third point is, just as man is an example in miniature of the greater world, meaning the universe, Surah Al-Fatiha is a shining example of the Quran's mighty stature. So this is an interesting comparison here. Bediüzzaman says, human being is a miniature example of the universe. Somewhere else, he says, if you squeeze the entire universe, it would become a human being. If you enlarge the human being, it would become the universe. It's very interesting. There are, maybe you might have seen them, there are some galaxy images that look like the human eye. Yeah. It's very interesting images, you know. And human being, you know, containing about 86 trillion living cells. Trillion, not billion. And they say each cell, you know, if you go into that micro world, it is like a galaxy itself. It's like a huge chemical thing place. Many things are happening there. Each cell, and we got billions and billions of them. So it is, you know, it's a very interesting comparison. So Surah Al-Fatiha, in a similar way, Surah Al-Fatiha, shining example of the Quran of mighty stature. So when we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, you know, every namaz, with salat, we recite Fatiha. Yeah? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Every salat. This, scholars call Surah Al-Fatiha Ummul Quran, the mother of the Quran. Because according to scholars, the Quran is squeezed in Fatiha. The entire Quran is squeezed in Fatiha. And then they say the entire Fatiha is squeezed in Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And Basmala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, is squeezed in Ba, the letter Ba. B. It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? So Fatiha really contains the entire Quran. Surah Al-Fatiha. It's like an index. So are the prescribed prayers a comprehensive, luminous index of all varieties of worship, because everything is in the prayer, all type of worship. You might remember I explained this before. When we are praying, we are actually offering all the 5 pillars of Islam. It's included in the prayer. Because we're making Kalima Shahada, it's in there. Yeah. We're turning towards Qibla, Hajj. We're doing the Hajj there as well. You know, and we're giving zakat through our body because we're performing certain things. The salat is in there itself anyway. And the other one is fasting. And during prayer, we fast. We're not allowed to eat. So the 5 pillars of Islam are inside the prayers, daily 5 prayers. That is why they are the most significant things of worship. They're like the index of worship. They are too important. And they say that on the day of judgment or in the grave, when you're asked about your life, the first question is, who is your Lord? Men Rabbuka, who is your Lord? After Iman part, the first question is the prayers. Straight away the prayers. You will be asked of our daily 5 prayers. So the 4th point, the second hand, the minute hand, and the hour hand, and the day hand of a clock, which tells the weeks to look to one another, are examples of one another, and they follow one another. You know, like when you look at the clock, you have the second, the arm that shows the seconds, and then the minutes, and then the hour, and when it goes twice around, it becomes a day. They all look at each other, and they follow each other, yeah? Similarly, the alternations of day and night, which are like the seconds of this world, a vast clock of the Almighty, and the years which tell its minutes, and the stages of man's lifespans, which is the hours. They tell the hours. And the epochs of this world's, the entire world's lifespan, which tell the days, they all look to one another, are examples of one another, resemble one another, and recall one another. Everything is connected. So he is enlightening here. You can see that there is a clock the clock of Almighty, the time he created. And in this clock, day and night are like the seconds of a normal clock, just a second, you know. And the years tell the minutes, and the stages of human lifespan is like an hour in this clock. And this is very interesting too. If you know, if they compared, I did the math the other day too. I get ChatGPT's help to do the math, you know. And I said, if you look at the human societies on Earth, you know, let us say we've been around for 50,000 years or more, 300,000 years. And I said, compared to the life of the universe, I said, how long is a human life in a day? So the universe has been around for 13.8 billion years. If we make that a day, within that day, how long is a human life? The entire humanity, though, not personal life. It is 0.036 seconds. Much shorter than a second, our life, if we squeeze it off. So that's what he's explaining here too, in a way. So they all look at one another. For example, now he's going to explain the hikmah, wisdom of the daily 5 prayers times. Why do we pray at certain times? The time of Fajr, early in the morning. This time until sunrise resembles, it is similar to, and calls to mind the early springtime in a year. You know, slowly the flowers are opening and things like that. The moment of conception in the mother's womb, you know, when the sperm falls into the mother's womb, and the first of the 6 days of creation, 6 episodes or eras of creation of the heavens and the earth, it recalls the divine acts present in them. So that time, it reminds you of many things. So one of them is it resembles the early spring in a year, the moment of when humans fall into the mother's womb, and the first day, the first era, we should say, of the creation of the universe. There are 6 stages in the creation of the universe. The time of Zuhur, the noon prayer, it's just past midday. This resembles the point of midsummer. It's summer. Morning was spring. Zuhur resembles summer. And the prime of a human youth. That's when you're young now. And a period of man's creation in the life of the world, this world, and calls to mind the manifestation of mercy and abundant bounties they contain, all the sustenance that Allah sends. So the noon prayer brings this to human mind. The Asr prayer, the afternoon prayer, this is like the autumn. And in regards to human beings, it resembles old age. You know, with the Fajr, you just conceived, born. Zuhur time reminds you of your youth, your most powerful stages. And Asr is like old age. And Asr is usually sad, because after Asr, you know that, you know, the sun setting is very close, you know. And the time of the final prophet, it reminds you, Asr. Prophet Muhammad والسلام, because he says, Prophet himself in a hadith, he says, if the humanity's life was a day, he goes, I came at Asr time. Asr time. So he's saying that it's not long to go to Maghrib. Not long to go Maghrib. So it's also known as the era of bliss, the noble prophet's arrival, and recalls the divine acts and favors of the all-merciful one present in them. They all remind you of all those, you know, the divine acts and favors that come to us. And then we have the time of Maghrib, which is the sunset. Through recalling the departure of many creatures, deaths of many living beings, the end of the autumn, so winter has arrived, and man's death, it reminds us a human's death, and the destruction of the world, the Qiyamah, at the commencement of the resurrection or the doomsday, this time puts in mind the manifestations of the divine glory and sublimity, and rouses man from his slumbers of heedlessness. So Asr wakes us up. We realize what's happening now. Old age, end is coming, so it wakes us up, Asr time. We realize that the time is coming slowly. The time of Isha, so Maghrib is everything is dying. It reminds us of winter. Everything is slowly dying. All living things are dying, and our life is finishing or finished. That's what Maghrib is, because the sun goes down at Maghrib. They are reminders. And the time of Isha, which is nightfall. As for this time, by calling to mind the world of darkness, veiling of all objects of the daytime world with a black shroud, and winters hiding the face of death on earth, with its white cremant, and even the remaining works of departed men, human being, dying and passing beneath the veil of oblivion and this world, the arena of examination, so it reminds us of the mahshar as well, arena, or maybe the barzakh, we can say, arena of examination, being shut up and closed down forever. Sorry, let me take that again. It reminds us that the arena of examination, which is this world, testing, being closed down forever. It reminds us that the Isha time, because everything has darkened. It proclaims the awesome and mighty disposal of the all-glorious and compelling subduer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So death has occurred, it's all dark now. So it reminds us that period in a human life. It also reminds us the period on earth where earth is ending, everything is ending. And there is this darkness. As for the night time, which is tahajjud prayer, is for people who get up and do their tahajjud prayers, through putting in the mind both the winter and the grave and the intermediate realm, which is barzakh. So tahajjud time in the middle of the night reminds us of barzakh, because we are in the barzakh now. It also reminds man how needy is the human spirit, the soul, for the most merciful one's mercy. It's interesting, isn't it? Look at all the connections there. So it reminds, because it's tahajjud in the middle of the night, it sort of reminds you everything is dark. You're waking up in the middle of the night, all alone. You're praying tahajjud. It reminds us how much we are in need for his mercy. Tahajjud. And of course, the tahajjud prayer informs him what a necessary light it is for the night in the grave and the darkness in the alemi barzakh, intermediate realm. Because tahajjud prayer is like a light. And those who perform it here will have light in the intermediary world, in the barzakh, alemi barzakh, in the grave. So sometimes it's good to push ourselves and wake up some nights. It warns him of this, and through recalling the infinite bounties of the true bestower, proclaims how deserving he is of praise and thanks. Because we are at his mercy. We are completely at his mercy. We are completely at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can take our lives at any time like that. And no one can stop him. No one. You know, I was preparing one for another video. I prepared some points at home because I listened to one video. It was by one astrophysicist. Okay. He's very, very famous. Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know him? Very famous. Yeah. And he was saying something, it just reminded me, I should do a video on it. He was saying that, look, if God existed, God existed, he cannot be all powerful and all good at the same time. That's what his argument was. And he was trying to support his argument by saying that, you know, like a few years ago when the Indian Ocean tsunami happened, you know, hundreds and thousands of people died. I think there was 220,000 people or something died there. You know, what he's saying, you know, he's either all powerful or all good. He can't be both, because if he was all powerful and good, he would have stopped it. That's what he's trying to say there. But the reality is, what they don't realize, the concept of death. You know, this sort of incidents makes us aware. We say, oh, 200,000 people died. But people don't realize 200,000 people die every day anyway. They don't realize that. Like about 2 million people dies every week on Earth. And this is the reality of life. They don't look at the alternative. You know, what would happen if you can't die? Imagine you can't die. You keep on getting older. And you can't die. You reach the age of 600 or something. You know, you cannot even stand up. You're always lying down. You can't go to the toilet. You can't eat for yourself. Life is finished for you, but you can't die. That's very scary. They don't look at the alternative. And this shows how weak we are, you know. And this shows how much in need that we are of Allah. And the next morning, we did the 5 prayers, all right? The 5 daily prayers. Now the next morning. The second morning calls to mind the morning of resurrection. So we went through the barzakh and everything. The next day, we woke up for the second prayer again. It reminds us of resurrection, because there will come a day where every human being who passed away will be resurrected on the day of judgment. In fact, Bediüzzaman, in I think it was in Mektubat, the letters, he has an argument on where this place might be, you know, Mahshar. Mahshar is a huge, you know, straight, smooth land where every human being will be resurrected again. And his idea is, he says that the earth goes around the sun. Right? It draws this huge circle-like thing. It's a bit elliptic. And because that area is great. And while Earth travels around the sun, people keep on dying on Earth. People keep on dying. And their souls are like seeds embedded in space. Like a farmer puts into the ground. But the Earth does not just go around the sun like that. The sun and the Earth, they all move as well around the galaxy, drawing a much bigger circle as well. Because whoever died at certain times and their seeds are planted there all over the space, after the Qiyamah, Allah will straighten that area. And they will be resurrected from the spot that they died in Alem-i Barza. So they will all be resurrected again. Everyone will come back again. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? So the next morning for us is a reminder of resurrection. For sure, however reasonable and necessary and certain the morning of this night is, the morning of resurrection and the spring following the intermediate realm, Berzakh, are certain to the same degree. So he's saying, just as when we wake up in the morning, we know that night will come. It's certain. It's not going to be keep on, always morning. Day. Unless, hey? Astronomy. Well, unless the Earth was tidally locked. That's astronomy too, where you are very close to the host star and you're unable to spin around yourself. Same face always looks at the star. Then it's always daylight on one side and night on the other side. There are planets like that in other systems. Moon is like that to us, but moon is not a planet. Moon is a thing, satellite. Yeah, but if you look at for example, Proxima Centauri, there are planets around it. As I remember, there are 4 planets around it. It's a red dwarf, and the closer ones are very close to it, and they're always facing the same way. So if there was life on there, this side will be always day and very hot, that the other side will always be dark and cold. Mercury is pretty similar. Although Mercury does spin, but it's very, very, very slowly. I think, as I remember, it was like a day on Mercury is like 78 days or something like that. I have to check it, but yeah. So most of the time, same face looking at the star. But Earth is not like Earth is a perfect system. See? It's a beautiful system. You have the day, you have the night. And the Quran says, we rolled the night over day and the day over night. And he says, just as night is certain when you wake up in the morning, the night of the intermediate realm, which is Barzakh, is certain, and the resurrection, the next morning, is certain as well. You will be resurrected. Because there are so many evidences for it. And there are spiritual evidences, there are prophetic evidences, there are Quranic evidences, there are previous scriptures evidences. So there are so many evidence for it. That is, just as each of these 5 daily prayers times marks the start of an important revolution and recalls other great revolutions, so through the awesome daily disposals of the eternally besought one's power, Allah's power, each of them calls to mind the miracles of the divine power and gifts of the divine mercy of both every year, every age, every epoch. That is to say, the prescribed prayers, the daily 5 prayers, which are an innate duty. It is an innate duty of man, human beings. And the basis of worship, it is the most fundamental of worship, and incontestable depth. We owe this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, I repeated this a number of times. Why is it a debt? Because he gave us life. He keeps us living. He gave us all these organs. And if we were to repay him for all the gifts that he has given us, these prayers won't be even enough. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept these prayers as enough. It's like a thank you to him. They are a debt, but normally we could never repay that debt. Because many times I said, if Allah said to us, I won't give you 2 arms when I create you. You'll have no arms, but you don't have to do the daily 5 prayers. All of us would say, Ya Rabbi, please give me my arms. I won't do it 5 times. I'll do it 10 times. We would all say it because it's very difficult to live without 2 arms. So the daily 5 prayers do not even repay for 2 arms. What about two eyes, the ears, the heart, all of your organs? How could you repay for them? They are just a thank you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all. Thanks for this gift, Ya Rabbi. That's what we are saying. So I'm finishing. So it is an innate duty. It's part of our fitra to worship. And the basis of worship, fundamentals of all worship. And no doubt it is a depth which are most appropriate. They are appropriate, the daily five prayers, and they are fitting for these times. So there is a wisdom of all the prayers being at specific times. They are assigned to those time because there's wisdom behind this. And we mentioned all the wisdom. So I remember some years ago, when I was in Turkey, this, I think he was like an officer in the army, this guy. And he was saying to his soldiers, he was saying that, I worship my God in my own way, I don't have to do it, like the way you guys do 5 times and daily, at specific times, because I can, I'll worship him on my own way. And one of the soldiers said to him, he said, sir, if I come next to you, and I said to you, I love you so much, and I go like this to you, because, and I say, I love you on my own way, Would you accept that as an officer? He would end up in the prison straight away if he was in the army, and he'd get belted to it. So every system has certain principles and certain rules, If you want to show your love to Allah, the Almighty, Allah says, this is the way you do it. When you offer the prayers to me, you show me that you love me. You show me that you believe me. You don't say, I'll do it on my own way. So daily prayers, there are many wisdoms in their times, and there are many wisdom in the way we perform them as well. They are very, very beneficial to us, not in regards to Ahire, life after death only, but also physically and spiritually as well. We were saying the other day, was it a few weeks ago, it makes us feel good once we do it. Yeah. But it also, there's a physical benefit. There was a whole entire book written on it. Every action you do, from the performance of ablution to the prayers, the actions, the things you do, acts you do, are beneficial to your body. They all have certain benefits, biological benefits. So they are given to us for a purpose. There's a reason there. Okay, inshallah. How does namaz analogy apply to places where the sun does not rise for a long time? Yes, there are hadiths in regards to this. Rezdan. There are some places on Earth very close to the North Pole or something, days are very long. And sometimes the nights are very long, for 6 months, that's 6 months there. So what do we do? How do we pray there? The question is, there is a hadith in regards to this. The Prophet explains how certain times and days will be longer and things like that. What we do is we divide in those places. If it's close to another country, which you can follow the times of, you do that. But if not, you divide your day yourself. If you only have a 6-hour day, you divide it accordingly and perform your prayers according to that. Because, you got to look at all options in fiqh. One day we might go to Mars and we might have a colony there. Then we need to pray there as well. Then you follow the times there, rising of the sun and setting of the sun, and you divide it. You still follow a similar time. Turn towards Earth. Kaaba is towards Earth. Plus, Kaaba is not just Earth itself, but it is like, imagine a light shining on top of Kaaba, like an axis going up and down. Just as the Earth has an imaginary axis on which it turns, just imagine the Kaaba having a straight line of light going over it and down. So you can turn to that direction, no matter how you are. I think a Muslim astronomer on ISS, International Space Station, he does it by just turning towards Earth. He prays. Yeah. Jazakallah khair, inshallah. Thank you, everyone.